Well, welcome back to Chiefs fans before we were cool.
Welcome, welcome. Good to see you, or good to have you watch us.
Yeah. It's like what my dad always says, good to be seen. So that's
Good
like
to
the
be
dad
seen.
thing.
Good to be seen. That's right. Good to be
uh
seen.
yep. I prefer filming after we win. And I prefer not losing twice in a row. Actually prefer not losing ever, but you know,
We don't want to be too greedy.
I don't want to be too greedy. I would never feel good about entering the playoffs if you haven't lost at least one game.
That's
Because
true. Because Tom Brady did it once and then he didn't win the Super Bowl.
yeah, the most important game.
That's right.
So
Yeah. He's on record for saying he would like have traded like three of his other Super Bowls for that one, have a perfect season with the Super Bowl.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
No.
even that though, like
Eli
that,
Manning. What a chat.
yeah.
Doing a solid for the rest of the NFL.
Eli had two Super Bowl wins that everybody in the world is thankful he had, except for like Tom Brady.
He could have given up that Atlanta one and the Seahawks one that were
Yeah,
kind of gifts.
yeah, yep. Although even if he'd gotten that, it wouldn't matter now. I mean, it'd still be a record, but it's now that there's an extra game, somebody could pass that record. Like
That's true.
so.
Someone could.
Yeah,
That
could
still seems unlikely for a
unlikely. So
while.
yep,
Anyway, um, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about this game a little bit, I guess, or jump into memes, I guess.
Yeah, let's hit some memes. That'll get us going. So you want to
Oh,
read these for us?
I got some Brother Wonders
Oh, great.
afterwards, but let's jump to the memes. Okay. All right. What do you have for me today? For Christmas, I want a dragon. Be realistic. Okay, I want the Chiefs to have a receiver who doesn't drop passes. What color do you want your dragon? You
uh,
know, I mean, we all knew this was going to happen with Rashidi Rice. He was really good, but that was his thing coming out of college. Um, he dropped some passes. Now we just, for some reason, everybody else, it's like a disease or something. It's kind of like the flu, I guess.
yeah,
It's just, it
yeah.
just goes through everybody's catches it most of the time.
Is it
Um,
like the?
although, although, as I was researching, because I wanted to see what was like the record for the most drop passes in a season by a team, um, I just learned that the Minnesota Vikings have passed us for
Oh,
most drop passes in the
okay,
NFL. Yeah,
okay.
because they had like six in their last game.
Feels good
So,
to be not number one in
good to
that.
be too good not to be a Vikings fan.
Yeah, yep,
Wow, they're really bad. Our receivers are bad, but at least we don't have
yep,
the Viking receivers.
yeah. Although I would trade all of our receivers for Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
So
that was part of why I was saying that.
yeah,
Like the
yeah, yeah.
Vikings, I mean, they have Justin Jefferson and the new rookie,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
who's
yep,
also really good.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I would trade I would trade receiving score in a heartbeat. No offense, I love you, Rasheed Rice.
yeah.
You're my man,
We
but
would we would trade for you back later,
we will
but
trade for
we.
you back later. That's right.
So yep,
Yeah, third round pick maybe.
yeah, yeah,
You can get good receivers for that.
yep, yeah, exactly. So
Okay,
all right,
sorry,
let's go to
that's
the
a
next one.
reference to what we'll talk about in a bit. Uh, yeah, the Chiefs would start playing football. That would be great.
Uh,
Oh, Taylor Swift. Well,
well,
welcome to football and its
yeah.
uh,
Well,
unbelievable variance. You can only be on the top for so long, and that's okay. We can still do really well.
um, before you do the next few, let me just say I embraced a dark part of myself this week for these memes. So we'll go to the next one now.
All right, Joel. Let's do this together. NFL's rules explain right foot on the line penalty, left foot on the line, no penalty. Yeah, yeah, we'll talk about that more. But Darius Toney being called offsides, Von Miller lining up the very next play.
Yep. All right.
NFL players when all offensive players are not on the Chiefs lineup offsides. Chiefs win. A game-winning play is about to happen.
Oh, that one hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
I like this
Oh,
next one a lot, though.
still can't believe they called this offsides. Chiefs got screwed. Looks totally fine to me.
Do you see where this is obviously Photoshop, but do you see where he's lined up in this
Yeah,
picture?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So far off. So far off. Oh my word. Definitely no
uh,
penalty. I mean, look, it was a penalty. I
mhm.
never get mad if they call something that's clearly a penalty. Still more mad about the Packers no pass interference
Yeah.
than that play. Um, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, um, but it is true that similar to the stuff with Juwan Taylor, that there's a lot of variance in what people call for that. Usually there are warnings. Um, it was pretty egregious, like
Mhm.
just as a fan. Um, but things get missed all
Yeah.
the time. It's
But I
just
like,
and they don't know. They threw it right away. Like that's the
yeah.
biggest thing. Like
Yeah.
they threw that flag right away. I knew that play was coming back from the beginning. Um, and I heard that maybe, Peyton Manning said something about maybe they should make it so that you just call the play dead so we don't see what would have happened.
Yeah.
But it's kind of left, I think, in the sense to be fair, when you get a free play on offense, for defense to get a free play, or at least a choice to decline or not.
Yeah. Although you don't really on defense, like if you get offsides and you're unimpeded to the quarterback, they blow it dead, So
Right. Oh, I guess for offside specifically, but like
yeah.
with similar plays, like
Yeah. Yeah. But I think maybe it was RG3 said this. It's like, yeah, it's a penalty. The thing that's frustrating about it is that generally the precedent is, like Andy Reid said, to give the coach a warning. And people said, well, they don't do that for the defense. And that's true. But the thing is, what they do most every time is they give the coach on the offense a warning. And maybe that's unfair, but that's why Andy Reid, who's coached forever, has never had an offensive offsides.
yeah,
So it definitely was a penalty. I think the real reason, like Patrick Mahomes was so mad and like all of us were so mad, it was just that on top of the bad calls last week. It was like, okay, yes, this was a call that doesn't often get made. We can see that
yeah,
players line up offsides all the time on offense and it's not called.
yeah,
But it was just kind of the insult on to the injury, like we already
yeah.
felt like last week we were cheated out of a win. Um, or a potential to win. So
Yeah, and I don't want to blame the refs or do conspiracies. I do wonder, especially with the Jawan Taylor thing. I just feel like the Chiefs have been good. They did win the Super Bowl, and so they have been a little bit more notice of like calls that have been kind of
yeah,
odd and ticky tack. Um, because people keep talking about how the Chiefs benefit, and there are a lot of times where we benefited from a call, and it's worked out, and we do well because we're a good team. A good team will often, if they get any sort of edge like that, will win.
yeah,
Right? They're already favored, but and they'll score and they'll make a sustained drive and it'll work. But it is kind of weird that there's been certain things like that offsides and others that have been. Again, I don't have a problem with it. Like I don't care if they call Jawan Taylor for you know um, uh, different false starts or things like that, because usually when they call it, it's a fair call. But at the same time, it's like because the Chiefs have been so good, the refs feel inclined. I wonder if that makes
yeah.
any impact.
Well, this
They
is
have to they have to be sure, because that was the narrative for all earlier in the season, that we kept getting saved by the refs. Or you think about the two our run to the Super Bowl between the Bengals, the missed call, and then I feel like the roughing the passer when they hit him out of bounds. That was absolutely a call. And then particularly the holding call, which again was somewhat fueled by the commentators because they were showing really bad angle of the hold.
Yeah.
And they just were like, "That's not a
Yeah.
holding. I don't see any hold." They weren't showing the right parts, whether that was whoever's fault that was, commentators or whomever. It seems like there's just been like this narrative, oh, the Chiefs always benefit from the calls. I think it's funny. I hope this just shuts that down. Like, I hope people were like, "Oh, okay, it happens both sides."
Yeah.
I don't
Well, I
know.
think
Like,
I think like to your point, I'm not saying it's a conspiracy, but even like that one in the Super Bowl, yeah, that they were showing bad angles. And to me, there's a difference between so that was an example of something that players might get away with sometimes, but is
yeah,
technically a foul. The same way the offsides is, right?
yes,
Players get away with it, but it's a foul. Earlier in this season, there were a couple of things where people were like, "Oh, the refs bailed the Chiefs out," but they were all things that was like, yeah, that could be called or could not be called at any given moment. It's clearly not definitely a missed call. I think the thing that I wonder about is as a response to that, if the refs have been this is more for the Packers game than last week, is if the refs have said, "Man, we've had controversial calls that the Chiefs have capitalized on, so try not to throw calls, try not to throw flags at the end of the game unless it's really obvious." And then we get what happened last week where there was an obvious penalty, but they're like, "Oh man, we don't want to look like we're deciding the game to help the Chiefs." So like
yeah,
if it's kind of like a reverse bias thing where they're like, "Well, we can't throw the flag because we don't want people to think we're biased." Um,
Yeah.
like I don't
maybe
know.
or makeup. Like they're like, well, I guess it's somewhat in the line. They're just arguing like, oh, was it catchable or not or whatever.
Yeah. And
Um,
I did a little bit of just like for flag football league here, I've done a little bit of reffing. And I think one of the consensus I've often heard is when in doubt, throw the flag because you can always pick the flag back up, but you can't really. It looks way worse if you like do a huddle and then throw a flag or something like that. Like you throw the flag when you see the thing happen and you can think back on it and say, okay, was that really, because in real time, it is really hard to see that stuff. In slow motion,
yeah,
everything looks like a penalty or looks clearly not like a penalty. But I just think throw that flag and then decide, but
yeah, yeah.
anyway,
That's fine. Oh, there's a lot of good ones, a lot of good memes. Thanks for looking those
yeah,
up and going down that dark path.
yeah.
So, here's some questions, Brother Wonders.
All
Brother
right.
Wonders, what do you think the chances are the Chiefs end up with the 1 seed now? Um, I don't honestly, I don't even want to think that way. I think you just say, let's get better. And if we get the 1 seed, great. If not, like, I mean, I guess I can just give you a number, but I'm not sure what the percentage is. Probably around 10% or something low. It's not great.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
obviously, we're not getting the bye week, right? I feel like that's really not happening. It's still technically possible, but I don't think it's happening because I don't anticipate the Ravens losing um, enough games to make that happen.
right. And,
Obviously, we
yeah,
could, after the first game, somebody could lose and we could get the home field, we could get the championship game. That could still happen. That's more likely than us being the 1 seed, I think. Um,
right. And that's
but
happened before. I think twice we weren't the 1 seed, but the 1 seed lost. So we ended up being the highest seed. And that's why it went through Arrowhead.
yeah.
Uh,
And so I just say, you know what, like let's not even worry about that. Let's just go take care of business. You know what, if we have to win road games in the playoffs, that's okay. Let's win some road games. We're not out of this. The Chiefs can bounce back. And hopefully this is finally like the fuel on the fire that gets them going because honestly, I don't know about you. I kind of loved seeing Mahomes get mad about it because like I like that he doesn't throw his teammates under the bus. I really like that about him. But it's at some point you're like, okay, just be mad. Like, yeah, we know you're like, oh, I could have put the ball better, but like what we want to hear as fans is like that was a garbage call. Like that's what we want to hear. Like, be mad, get motivated, use that
casualty
fuel
rest.
because I feel like when the Chiefs are mad, they play better,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So
Yeah. Can you think of any bad call that made you as mad as Mahomes was at the end of the game?
Oh man. I mean, it was pretty hard last week with the um Packers.
Yeah.
Um,
I think yeah,
I'm trying to think. You go ahead. I'll try to think if
I
there was
think
another one.
that one, it was roughing the passer penalty with Chris Jones a while back.
The
Um,
one where he ended up recovering the football in a fumble as he
yeah,
sacked.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that one.
That one made me really mad. I think they won that game. They came back and won it, maybe.
Yeah,
Um, so like I at the moment though, I was that mad. Like if that ends the game, it's the difference.
yeah,
Just also, I've mentioned before on the podcast, I get the most mad when there's a um whatever it's called, like you know, a shove or something like a personal foul. Uh,
yeah,
where, like I said, I blame Pacheco more than the MVS thing for throwing a punch. I get more mad when there was a Kelsey one a couple games, earlier this season that may have
yeah,
been a difference. Like, there's a Chris Jones one in that Colts game last year that ended up being the difference in us winning the game. Those are the ones that I get mad about because I'm like, keep your head, guys. Like those are the ones that are absolutely not even a part of the game, not a part of refs not being
yeah,
perfect. It's just literally you choosing to do something that um, cost your team yards and often the game,
yeah.
maybe the
Like
game.
when there's a few years ago. I think it was the last time we lost to the Raiders, maybe, where they had, because of penalties, they got like 6 chances from like the 10 to score. And after one point, Marcus Peters picked up the flag from the ref and threw it in the stands because he was so mad. Well, I was like, I feel you, but you can't do that. Like, um, the yeah, I'd agree with you on that though. That the self-induced penalties that are like just people getting mad. I'll say this though, this is not really a penalty, but what I love to see is, especially in the first half of a game, when the other team's defense does something and they go take like a group picture in the end zone and all pose together, because you just think, oh man, you shouldn't have done that. You got Mahomes angry,
Yeah.
the
I mean, as a, I still feel like if you're that team, most of the time you just gotta enjoy it
yeah,
because she's gonna be mad either way.
yeah.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. Do you think Jones will still be with the Chiefs next year?
I don't think so, unless he's going to take a major pay cut. Because, to be honest, I think our defense is really good because of him. I think other people get more sacks because he's there and gets more focus. But I feel like he has not had the dominant statistical season that he probably needed, right? Um, I now it's not too late, because he can, in like big downs, he's always the guy to get the sack. So I'm hopeful, but like Snead is on a contract year too, right? Like, and so there's just a lot of people I'm not sure who will be able to
Yeah.
keep or not, and it just depends on who's willing to take more team friendly deals. And I'd rather give Kelsey money if it comes down to anything, keeping Kelsey happy as long as he's going to play.
Keeping up
But
with the Swift.
yeah,
It's gotta get some money now
yeah,
because I'm sure that's gonna be a big jump for her. Like, I
yeah,
don't think
yeah,
it's still gonna be very lopsided. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I would say, look, I think the biggest mistake of the offseason, and I felt like it was a mistake when it happened. I was concerned about it. Was the Jawan Taylor contract, and I think that's going to hamstring us for other players like Snead, like Chris Jones. Opportunity cost was too high. It was a really high payment that we made because we were nervous. We didn't want to have another Buccaneers year.
yeah,
And I appreciate that about Brett Beach, but I think it put us in a position of weakness. Our negotiations with Orlando Brown and stuff like that put us in a bad position, and we shouldn't have jumped right into it at the beginning. If he has a better deal somewhere else, let them pay him $20 million a year. We should not have been paying we 16 million. is what we should have been doing. And then maybe we get to keep Chris Jones, like maybe that makes the money work for him. Maybe, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things. There's a lot of things I think that have costs that, like, that's going to be a huge opportunity cost that, we do that, Frank Clark, he was a good player and good in the playoffs and stuff, but that hamstrung us. Like we couldn't do as much because of that big contract that we had for a long time.
Yeah.
Stuff
Well,
like that.
I think the Chiefs, if they keep drafting well, will be okay. Like this season feels like it's a struggle compared to other seasons. But I mean, at the same time, it's like, okay, well, Rice is a bright spot.
Yeah.
We'll have Ross back. This would be a good time to let him be involved more and see like what he can actually do. Like obviously we have Pacheco. Like if we keep drafting well, like so many of our stars on the defense are young guys. So yeah, I think we're gonna not be able to get some of those. We're not gonna be able to keep everybody, but it seems like Spags is pretty good at getting the next guy going, so.
Well, yeah, and I think with Snead, I mean, we've been really good at drafting safeties and cornerbacks recently, so I think they'll keep rolling with that. Even though he has been amazing, like honestly, he would be so valuable. The way he shut down top wide receivers this year is insane.
Yeah.
Get some penalties with it, but who cares if they're only getting 30 less than 50 yards, like a top receiver?
That's insane. Yeah. Who the Stephon Diggs only had one catch. I think one catch for 6 yards.
He had a few, but he had like 11 targets. Let me pull up the stats. And they weren't for very many yards whenever he caught it. So Stephon Diggs, he had 4 catches for 24 yards.
Okay.
On 11 targets.
Yeah. I think maybe in the first half he had like, I don't know what it was, but like, so
that's a lot.
Yeah.
So wow. All right. And then last, on a scale of 1 to jump through a table, how mad would you be if the Chiefs lose this weekend? I don't know.
Well, I would jump through a table.
I'd probably jump through the table. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a breakaway table, I don't know. I've never really had the desire to jump through a table.
Is there a chance? Weird
thing.
I'm not a Bills fan. I don't just like
other brother
tables.
Wonders why brother wonders if we might jump through a table. Like, where does jump through a table come from? Is that a saying? Am I just like?
I don't know. I think like, I don't know. See, here's my answer. I would smash through a wall like Andy Reid dressed as the Kool-Aid man.
See, now I'm looking through like safety techniques of how to jump through a table, of like a folding table or something.
Yeah.
Man, but there's a science to this thing. Maybe
Those
brother's onto something. Let's work on figuring out how to jump through a table, just in case we lose again this week. But I guess that's a good trend. I mean, anything else about the game that stood out? I mean, the defense showed up again.
Yeah, they can sometimes be rough at there's a few games, or like the Chargers game where they gave 14 points on the first 2 drives, and then they only gave up 3 more points the rest of the game. Where they just settle in, and that's why I still think we have a team we could win the Super Bowl with, because I think our defense keeps every game close. And it seems like we're playing in the second half again. Which is what we traditionally are. We usually struggle in the first half. So yeah, I think
struggle 1 half, 2 halves of a table that we could jump through.
Yeah, this has become a thing, I guess. It's like, is this a Chiefs blog, or is this a jumping through a table blog? Like
parkour.
Yeah, parkour.
Yeah. So I think those stood out. I mean, again, all our defense did great. We had some good plays from Rashee Rice. They kept giving him the ball, 10 targets. So it's good to see that that Reid is trusting a rookie. Like, that's a big deal. Like, again, he's obviously our best option, but that hasn't always been the case in the past.
Yeah.
Of course, that wasn't the case in the past last year where it was Sky Moore, and now we're seeing maybe why.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't just Reed being Reed. It was like, oh, he wasn't ready.
Yeah, the Rice is the first Chiefs receiver to get 100 receiving yards as a rookie since Dwayne Bowe.
Yeah.
So that puts you back a little bit. So
Way,
yeah,
way back. Yeah. So that's good. Good to keep seeing. And I guess let's, yeah, they had some good plays. I'm a little nervous about how well we do against the run. Um, but I mean,
yeah.
that's fine.
It's
It
just
is
the
what it is.
nature of the thing in that we play a lot of man because
Yeah,
zone is better against the run in general.
that's true.
Because your corners are looking that direction more. And so it's one of those things where it seems like early in every game, their run works for them pretty effectively. But once we stop them, it basically like they'll move down the field, and at some point in the drive, they will lose yards or they'll pick up nothing on a first down, and that really sets them back. And that's when, especially you get to like third and 12, third and 10, then the defense is really locks down, when there's long yardage situations, because then it's obvious pass and we're doing really well against that. So
Yep.
yeah, I think there's a chance that for a lot of the game it seems closer than it should be with the Patriots, just because their defense is good. Their offense struggles. It might be hard for our defense the first couple drives just because this is a pretty new quarterback. So there's not necessarily a lot of tape, but I would love this to be a week where the offense comes out early and comes out often and moves the ball. So
Come on, let's do it, Chiefs.
yeah,
I don't want to jump through a table, so
yeah,
let's
I
not lose.
know.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll see how Zeke does.
Yeah,
Papa Zeke.
yep,
He'll he played pretty well last week for the Patriots. Played like 92% of the snaps, so played a lot of snaps
yep.
as a running back. But he is a little bit older, so that's probably helpful for us. So a little bit
Yeah,
less spry than James Cook.
yep, yeah, and just they're not really having a great year offensively. Like if we put up, and if we put up 20 points, you feel like that they're gonna really be in a tough spot to try to do that. I think maybe they did more than that last week, but
How about 17?
yeah, yeah. So
Sorry, I'm
the
sorry. Too soon.
too soon. But
um, yeah,
yeah,
if we put up
obviously
20
the
points,
NFL is competitive, so you can never sleep on anyone. But you think like this should be a week where we can get, just start getting back into the rhythm of playing football. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Let's get back into it. Hopefully beat the struggling Patriots.
yeah,
I don't think there's any other thing that we would highlight. Just again, their defense is pretty good, but our offense is still probably good enough just by nature of having Mahomes to get some stuff done. Get
yeah.
ahead.
Now, this is not about the Chiefs game, but I just want to go on record with this before it inevitably happens. Okay. But I'm pretty sure that even though the 49ers look really good right now, at some point, whether it's in the divisional round, the championship round, or the Super Bowl, I feel like at some point they are going to lose simply because they're paying for every position to have elite talent except for quarterback. I think
Mhm.
Brock Purdy is playing pretty well. But honestly, like, even though I'm mad at the things he said, Tyreek Hill probably deserves to be MVP this season, right? Like,
Yeah.
Brock Purdy has a crazy amount of weapons. That team is going to financially explode in like 2 or 3 seasons when they have to when all these players contracts are due. But I just think like he's playing really good. He might be an improvement on a lot. He might be a top 10 quarterback, but I think mostly it's just he's got an incredible team. And there have been a couple games this year where you see if it gets really tough, I don't think he's a guy to win a Super Bowl for you. So I just want to say that before it inevitably happens, so people
Oh,
don't
okay.
don't
All right.
accuse me of like being like, oh, I always said this. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I foresaw that.
yeah, yeah,
Um, here's a question. So I think we jokingly were talking about the whole hashtag drop Tony. Um,
yeah.
like I don't know. It is it? Do you think it's worth it to drop? Like I think we did that. I mean, you mentioned Barry, right? We dropped him in the middle because of that attitude problems, probably.
Oh, not Marcus Peters.
Sorry, Marcus
Yeah,
Peters.
yeah, and we
Sorry.
traded him.
Oh, we did trade him. I didn't
Yeah,
remember that. It was not for much though, was it?
yeah. Not a ton, I don't think. But I was like, oh, not Barry. Eric Berry has never did anything wrong in his whole life, probably as far as football
I'm
goes.
sorry. I'm sorry.
So,
To fame another Barry or Eric.
yeah.
I'm not a Barry.
Okay, full disclosure, I was mad after last week and I text our group thing. Eric already knows this, but I said cut Tony. And realistically, I don't actually think cutting him at this point in the season does you any good because he could just be signed to another team just for the purpose of, hey, tell us anything you can help us get an edge on the Chiefs offense. You know,
Everybody does that.
everybody
we
does
can't
that.
we can't get anybody through the past practice squad anymore.
Yeah. But the thing is as mad as I was, yeah, he had a really good return in the Super Bowl. And so I'm mixed about it. I know he has all the physical talent in the world, but it's like, but I also don't know that I trust him to be the guy in those plays. But I guess like if it's not Kelsey, Rice, Pacheco, or on a pass, McKinnon, then I guess I'd rather have Tony out there than Sky Moore on those plays, you know. Um, so I don't know. I don't
You
actually
know,
think we should cut him, but
no.
I just it's like in one sense I don't want to see him in a lot of snaps. I don't want to see him taking snaps from Rice, but in another sense, do I think he has a potential to be a better impact than Watson or Moore? Probably so. I don't know. That's my thought. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
he's tricky. I would just say with Tony, he's a really strong talent. I think we forget how young these players are. Yeah, he's 24. He's not super old. I mean, he's old enough, like he's not just coming out of college or whatever, like some
Yeah.
players in the NFL, but like he's not like I think there's probably some maturity stuff going on. I think he sometimes gets stuck in this mindset of I'm really good. I need to show I'm really good, and it ends up getting into his head. And that's been the way this whole season. I think the talk about him being our number one receiver at the beginning of the year was not healthy for him.
Mhm.
But again, it's a lot of speculation there. I'm just saying, like, look, this is a person. They're growing up as people, and he made a mistake, and it was a mental error. And again, it seems like a mistake that maybe you could get away with, or maybe shouldn't have been called. Like whatever you want to talk about. Um, it is something that happens, but the ultimately makes a mistake. Young receiver. Our receivers are going to grow, and they're going to
Yeah.
learn and grow, and that's kind of why I think it may be a good way to end. And as we think towards the future, maybe we get the one seater, no, but I think it's clear we just need to focus on development and getting better as a team, not get so caught up on wins and losses. We're
Yeah.
good enough. We should still win the AFC. Like we're still ahead of the Broncos and
Yeah. Well,
AFC West, so we should have the division. So we're in the playoffs. As long as we're in the playoffs, we got a chance.
yeah,
So
and to your point, I seem to recall that there was a year where Tom Brady didn't have a lot of weapons and Edelman was like not a good receiver at that point. And then there's like the next year. That next year might have been the year with the Falcons where you're like he had this ridiculous catch and just like so all that to say, in 2 years from now, we might be looking at it and people are like, dang, they've got Rice and they've got Tony, they're stacked, like these guys might come up to be a big deal. So like let's like Tony, like we know you're watching. We still love you. I'm sorry I texted friends that we should cut you. I didn't mean it. I was hurt. Hurt people. But this is going to be the game where you start turning around and you're going to be awesome through the rest of the season in the playoffs and the rest of your career in Kansas
Right.
City.
That's great. Yeah, this is a defining moment for you, Tony.
Yeah.
We love you, Tony. We love you, KT.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's great. You know, we can be positive about it. We don't have to blame people. I think that I want the Chiefs to take responsibility for their mistakes while being frustrated, being mad. And honestly, I think, and again, you know, I think it's going to be a comeback game where we kind of just dominate the Patriots, just because we're tired of losing and we are the Chiefs, and so they'll push back in. Will it be something where our mistakes will cost us again, kind of like it did when we lost to the Bengals a couple years ago in the championship, AFC Championship? Maybe, but ultimately, we're the Chiefs, still on track to get into the playoffs. Still on track to be there with Mahomes as a quarterback and an elite defense, which we haven't had. So maybe we win in a different way this year. That would be crazy to win the Super Bowl with this team. But even if not, let's just get better and see where we can go. And maybe, like you said, 2 years, we have a stacked wide receiver core.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I still believe that we can do it. And you know, it is a growing pain of this is what to really be a dynasty, you know, that people have like thrown that around is like you have to draft well, but also you have to have years where you're like, we're gonna find ways to win with teams that are not optimal. And you know what, like this could be a good year to do that. But even if we don't seal the deal this year, we still have a lot to look forward to. You know, I think every year that Mahomes is our quarterback, we're looking for going and winning the Super Bowl. So,
hey, you know, Brett Veach this offseason, he might just get every wide receiver there.
Just like
he's like,
yeah.
remember how he responded to the offensive line problem with the Buccaneers? It's like, oh, everybody talked about receivers as a problem.
Yeah.
See what I can do, you know?
Yeah. And honestly, I still would love, you know, Gray's been doing really good, but I would still love to see us sign Zach Ertz and just run 2 tight ends on every play. And make people decide where they're going to cover us.
All personnel, let's get booed.
Yeah.
Here we go. Wow, you look like you could jump through a table.
I'm gonna jump through a table. I mean, no, I'm not, because we're gonna win. So maybe a celebratory jump through a table. Is that an option?
All right. Well, just be ready to do so.
Okay.
No, we're not gonna be ready to do. We don't need to be ready to do it because we're gonna win.
Yeah. So
the other team, all the Patriot fans can jump through a table.
When we win, we can throw someone else through a table. This got weird. Let's get weird. Let's get weird.
All right, see you next week. Hopefully we won't be jumping through tables.
Yeah. Bye.